Welcome to the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Every week, you'll hear strategies for building your online service-based business your way. And now, here's your host, veteran freelancer, author, and TEDx speaker, Laura Briggs.
Welcome back to another episode of the Advanced Freelancing Podcast. Most of you know that I got my freelance start on Upwork, which used to be known back in the day as Elance. It is also a site that I get a ton of questions about as a freelance coach for people who are always curious if it's still a good way to meet potential clients and to grow your freelance business. The truth is that my use of Upwork has changed over time. When I first started my business, it represented over 80% of the leads coming into my company. But I quickly realized how dangerous that was because if Upwork went out of business overnight or banned me or something big happened that was outside of my control, I would essentially lose my business. So I flipped the course of my focus in my freelancing business over to LinkedIn, retainer clients, and cold pitching. This was really instrumental in helping me get more of a balance because if you've listened to this show for a while, you know that one of my main goals is to make sure that nothing takes my business to zero. No one marketing method, no one client, no one side hustle, right? I never want to have something that, especially with something like Upwork, could go out of business overnight and dramatically impact my company. That being said, I still generate an income from Upwork. I basically did not use it at all over the course of 2020. My profile really kind of went stagnant there. I didn't bring on any new clients. I was in a full-time remote role where I just didn't have the time to take it on. But I also rebuilt my role there and my feedback and my job success score over the course of the middle of 2021 until where we're at right now, which is the middle of 2022. So although my use of Upwork looks slightly different now, I want to talk about some of the general pros and cons of using this site as a freelancer. It can be really helpful for people who are thinking about adding this in as a potential marketing method or for new freelancers who are deciding if it is worth their time. So I have lots of other episodes about Upwork. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, I recommend going back and checking out some of those. But I'm going to start by talking about the pros. And I have 6 pros and 6 cons of using Upwork as a freelancer. If you've hung out in any freelance circles, you will notice that Upwork is like a 4-letter word in this community. There are people who absolutely hate it and say it is the bane of their existence. There are people who say that it is ruining freelancing for everyone. There are very strong opinions about Upwork, but I think some of those opinions can miss out on the opportunities that are available on this site if you use it strategically, right? So I'm not saying don't use it at all, and I'm not saying use it for all of your freelance business. I'm saying use it as one of your marketing methods. So if you're an established freelancer, maybe you just check Upwork once a week to see if there are any good leads on there. Maybe you check once a month and submit 5 pitches, right? That's essentially how I use Upwork as an experienced freelancer. I'm looking for those incredible hidden gem jobs posted on the site. I'm not spending hours a day. I'm not spending time creating dozens of pitches per month. So let's dive in with some of those pros. Pro number 1 is that many clients come here first. Your clients don't always understand what it means to get pitched over LinkedIn or email. Those clients who know they have a project likely post their job on Upwork first. So before asking for recommendations, before going into their kind of personal network, they're going to post a job on Upwork, right? So if they're coming there first, it can be a disservice for you to not be even listed as an option on Upwork. Pro number 2 is it's an opportunity to get your feet wet. Starting a freelance business is relatively low risk if you do it the right way. You don't need a $5,000 website. You don't need a domain name, right? You don't need to go all in and take out a business loan, but you may just want to try out freelancing and see if it's a fit for you. This is a really nice low risk way to get started because you can do a couple projects on Upwork and see if you even enjoy it. Do you enjoy this niche? Do you enjoy the industry? Do you enjoy freelancing, period? The third benefit of using Upwork is it's your opportunity to build a reputation. One of the hardest things for new freelancers is having to tell a potential client, hey, I actually don't have any experience yet. I don't have any feedback from clients yet. On Upwork, once you break through that barrier of getting your very first gig on the site, it is much easier to build on that reputation. So you get a couple of positive feedback comments from past clients. That does some of your marketing work for you because it essentially says that other people have vetted what it is like to work with you. This makes it a lot easier for you to get future jobs. But we'll talk about in the cons section. It's not so easy to get that first job on Upwork, right? So building a reputation is something that can be really helpful for new freelancers or people who don't have clips, credits, or great past work examples. The fourth benefit of Upwork is that over the course of time, it's less marketing work for you. I don't have to put together really, really strong pitches on Upwork anymore because I have over 400 clients that I've worked with on that site, and they've left feedback on my Upwork profile. So my Upwork profile does a lot of the work for me by putting that information out there, right? I can just say something like, if you want to hear from some of my past clients, check out just a few of the reviews listed on this platform. So it makes it a lot easier for me over time because I've got that established relationship there. Having so many reviews and comments from past clients makes future clients more likely to hire me. The fifth benefit of Upwork is that clients are pre-sold. This means that most of the clients who use Upwork already recognize that they have a project that should be handled by a freelancer. You don't have to convince them that they need your service. You don't have to convince them that it's worth outsourcing this project to an independent contractor. They've already made that decision. They are just looking for the right person. This takes one step out of your marketing project management steps, right? It's one less thing for you to have to convince someone, hey, you need a social media manager. Hey, you need someone who knows WordPress to design your website. Hey, you need a competent copywriter to write things that are on your website or in your email newsletter. They already know that. It's why they're posting a job on Upwork. And the sixth benefit of Upwork is that there's no need for a website or portfolio. I really do not believe that new freelancers need to spend money on building a website or portfolio, especially if this is just a side hustle and you're testing things out. You don't yet know whether this is something you want to do full time, if you even want to do it part time. So don't put that pressure on yourself of needing to deal with all of those different details. Decide instead, hey, what is the minimum thing that I can get out the door right now? Maybe it's just kind of updating my LinkedIn and using my Upwork portfolio as if it was a website. I did not have a website for 3 solid years as a freelancer because I used mostly Upwork to build my business. I had examples of my work clips there. I had imported material from my resume. I had written a great about section. I didn't need a website. And in fact, my Upwork portfolio did more of the work for me because it had all of that feedback from clients. It showed examples of past projects I'd closed out, how long those took, what some of those paid. And so it did a lot of the heavy lifting for me without the additional maintenance or expense of dealing with a website or a portfolio. But working on Upwork is not perfect, right? And you're much more likely to hear people talk about all of the cons than any of the pros. But let's talk about some of the cons from my experience. I have been on the Upwork and or Elance platform for 10 years now. So I've seen lots of iterations of it. It's been at varying levels of importance in my own business. So this is from my perspective working on the projects that I have on Upwork. So the biggest con, of course, is that you're competing against other freelancers. This means that a client may know they need to hire somebody, but you are potentially competing against anywhere from 5 to 20 other freelancers. If someone is better at pitching than you, if someone has more feedback than you, if someone just does a better job convincing the client they're a fit, that's going to be hard for you to break in and consistently win the work. However, I am also a client on Upwork. And so I see the kinds of pitches that come in when I post jobs. 80% of them are completely generic or irrelevant. I usually archive and decline approximately 80% of the proposals that I receive as a client. So what I'm saying here is there's a lot of opportunity to write a great pitch, to spend a little bit extra time. Lots of people just send really general, hey, I'm a virtual assistant. I could help you with this project. I've been a virtual assistant 2 years. That doesn't tell me anything as a client. It literally tells me nothing. And it's the same thing that every other virtual assistant on the site is saying. So the second con is that it's really hard to break in. And I will say it has gotten harder to break in the last couple of years. There are many qualified freelancers on Upwork, which means that getting that first job is really difficult. It might take 50 pitches. It might take 70 pitches to get to that point. A lot of people don't have the patience to wait for that. Or feel like it's just too difficult to get that first job. Getting that first job, and honestly, that first couple of jobs is really important because you're going to get feedback from those clients that can be used to build your reputation on Upwork. So essentially, every Upworker has a 5-star rating that they can get after every project. And if a client leaves you a 5-star rating on your first 3 projects, your job success score, which is a percentage out of 100, with 100 being perfect, will be higher if you have 5-star feedback across the board. Now, that's a double-edged sword because if you screw up one of those first couple of jobs, your average score is going to be low. So if 2 clients give you 3 out of 5, even if the third client gives you 5 out of 5, overall, you have a very small pool of jobs going into that average, and your score is essentially like really low and very difficult to recover. So it's really hard to break in, but it is even more important that you do a great job with any position you do get when you finally break in. The third con of Upwork is that their customer service is not great. This is true across the board. They're very difficult to call. They often hide their phone number. They try to make you do online chats and emails, and it's really hard to get the context of your issue across. For example, they had my maiden name listed on my profile for years, and I had to go through 3 different customer service people to get my name changed to my actual legal married name. There's no reason it should have taken that much work with customer service to get to that point. And the same is true if you have a dispute with a client where you need to argue that you haven't been paid or you haven't been paid properly. It's just really difficult to get through their customer service. So I just throw that out there as something worth considering. It's not like you're going to be dealing with customer service often, but I don't know about you. It's nice for me knowing that if I need help, I can get it, right? So con number 4, you do have to pay a fee to Upwork for every job you complete, in addition to a monthly membership fee if you want to have lots of what they call connects. Connects are essentially what you use to bid on jobs. You spend the connects on your job on Upwork, whether or not you get the gig, right? So you may see a job post and it might say 6 connects are required to submit to this job post. I spend those 6 connects regardless of whether or not that client hires me. Likewise, the size of your job will determine the percentage that you pay to Upwork. This is one that kind of irritates me when a lot of people complain about it because it's really as simple as adding 20% fees to your total charge to the client and saying, my rate suggested here includes the Upwork fee. Like, some clients don't know that you're paying a fee, so they just have no way of otherwise knowing that situation, right? So add the fee. It will tell you when you submit a bid on a project what percentage of it will go to Upwork and how much you'll take home dollars wise. So use that calculator to help you decide if you have charged enough. Many people complain about the fact that they have to pay a fee to Upwork. The way that I look at it is that it's a cost of doing business. Upwork is bringing me freelancing jobs I would not otherwise know about. So it makes total sense to me that I'm paying them a brokerage fee for the opportunity to work on that job. For some freelancers, that's a deal breaker. So if that's you, I recommend you don't sign up for Upwork at all because you'll get annoyed with that coming out of every job. Now, that percentage goes down the more dollars you earn from a client or the longer you work with them, because simply you're earning more dollars with the client by working with them long term. So a lot of my projects go down to 10% instead of a 20% cut once we pass that first $500 in earnings. Con number 5, if you cancel a job, it's still harmful to you. Now, let's say you start working with a client, the client is a nightmare. You don't want it to harm your Upwork profile, but you know you need to cancel this job. So you can cancel the job and not have this show up on your profile with bad feedback. This used to be a way of, hey, I think this client's going to give me bad feedback. I'm just going to refund them. I'm going to cancel the job. And that way it doesn't show up on my profile. So Upwork doesn't share all of the details that go into your job success score, which is actually con number 6. So these two are kind of related. But if you cancel a job, essentially Upwork doesn't see that as a positive either, especially if you're canceling multiple jobs. So it can still be harmful to you, even if the situation was not your fault, right? So your job success score might drop somewhat because you've canceled a job. You might have canceled it because the client didn't give you information. Maybe the client had unrealistic expectations, the terms that you agreed to, they tried to change after the fact. There are a lot of different reasons why you might want to cancel a job, but it can still be harmful to your overall performance. However, as you get more experience on the site, this can really be averaged out. And if you are named as an Upwork Pro, then you can, I think it's once every 90 days, you can have a piece of bad feedback removed. I believe I have used that twice in the time that I have been on the site, when someone just left really unfair feedback or left a comment that I just didn't want published on my overall profile because it was showing up as the most recent. So I talked to you a little bit about that already, but con number 6, they don't publish everything that goes into the Upwork job success score. So you can get great feedback from all of your clients, and you can, they can be telling you publicly and privately, everything's going great. You're closing out jobs on the site. You can still not have a 100% success score, right? So it's really important that you understand that there are a lot of metrics that they use to determine what your percentage out of 100 is. You will never know what those are. And I've seen my score vary widely. It can go from 95% to 100% down to 94 and just kind of all over the board. So it is not the be all and end all. It is not something to stress about, but it definitely is something to consider. So I hope if you're thinking about how Upwork might fit into your work as a freelancer, you recognize some of these pros and cons and can use that to decide whether or not this is the right fit for you. Upwork has really changed the way that I approach my freelance business, and I'm closing in on over $500,000 generated from that website alone. That's a lot of money, particularly a huge chunk of it being in the first few years of my freelance business. Even though Upwork is a much smaller portion of how I get clients now, I still land great clients from time to time, including a $22,000 project I just closed out in Q1 of 2022. So it just depends. Think about whether this makes sense for you and how you can make it support your freelance business.